Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Chair Tanya Rodriguez, and I would like to welcome you to the January 19, 2023 Human Relations Commission in-person meeting. We are coming to you live from the Cherokee homelands, where the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians remain a sovereign nation to this day. We will now call our meeting to order. Duties of the Human Relations Commission of Asheville include, but are not limited to, make policy recommendations to City Council which promote and improve human relations and advance equity in the city. 2, support the city's Office of Equity and Inclusion. 3, provide a forum where residents can raise issues and complaints relating to human relations in the city. 4, engage the community regarding the utilization of city-funded programs and policies for the promotion of human relations. And 5, promote and improve human relations and advance equity in the following areas: public safety, education, art and cultural opportunities, economic development, health and human services, and housing. All commission members and staff are participating in person. We're also streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the commission page. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by dialing 855-925-2801, 855-925-2801. and entering meeting code 9723. For those of you who plan to speak during our live public engagement today, you will need to be present to speak. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. Roll call. I will now go through and introduce all the commission members, staff, and guests. For our commission members, please make sure to wait until you are recognized before speaking. When you have a question or would like to speak, raise your hand, and when recognized by either I or Brandon, please advance your speaking. Commission members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. See list of members provided in the meeting materials. Our roll call vote. Are we at quorum? Yes, we are at quorum. Tanya Rodriguez. Hello. Vice Chair Brandon Oliver.
Hello, everyone.
Daniel Young, Commissioner Daniel Young.
Hello.
Commissioner Dolores Venable.
Good evening, everyone.
Commissioner Harvey Dean Harold.
Here.
Commissioner Crystal Michelle Reed.
Hello.
Commissioner Enwena Smith.
Hello.
Commissioner Alma Atkins.
Good evening.
Commissioner Christopher Boyd is not present. Commissioner Ellen Catherine.
Hello.
And Donald Post has let us know he is not going to be here this evening. Thank you very much for being here, commissioners. We are at quorum tonight, which is a wonderful thing. Our city council liaison is Kim Rooney. Thank you for being here tonight. Our city staff members are Elena Schmidt. Thank you. And Brad Branham is our city attorney, legal representative.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here, Brad. And Brenda Mills, our wonderful Director of Equity and Inclusion. Thank you for being here today. To give us a shared understanding of group norms and to ensure everyone participating feels heard and valued in this meeting, we will review the group agreements which were created based on the boards and commissions ethics policy. The group agreements are located in the back of your meeting packet. Our group agreements are as follows: be civil and courteous, Be respectful of differing opinions. Be present. No personal attacks. The acronym WAIT, W-A-I-T. Why am I talking? Why aren't I talking? Pursue the common good. Respect and honor the majority decision. Be fair and impartial with votes and discussion. Adhere to the ethics policy. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud. Please state your name each time you comment. Just a reminder that the public is listening on the phone, and this keeps everyone up to date on the order of the meeting and who is commenting or speaking. We do have a quorum tonight, and so we'll move to approve the minutes for our November 17, 2022 meeting. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the November 17, 2022 minutes.
Motion.
I'll second that motion.
All right, Commissioner Harold made the motion, Commissioner Venable seconded, and are we taking a roll call vote live?
You can just do a show of hands. You're no longer required to take a roll call vote since you're in person.
Thank you very much. After many years being virtual, it's refreshing to see everybody's face. You were absolutely right about that, Commissioner Venable. Thank you.
Thank you.
For advocating for this. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Minutes are approved for our November 17, 2022 Human Relations Commission meeting. At this time, we will bring our meeting to Elena for staff updates, or Brenda, or Elena, no. Elena.
Do too many things at once. So the staff report is an update on the recommendation that the Human Relations Commission sent to City Council regarding your membership. The City Council approved at their, I forget the date of their meeting, but City Council approved a reduction in membership on the HRCA from 15 down to 9, and that's retaining existing members. So you currently have 11 members on the HRCA, and you'll stay on until you're either removed, you resign, or your term ends. So even though there's now 9 members on the HRCA, and you're currently at 11, that's okay. And then the other update for that is the City Council also approved up to 3 seats to be filled on the Human Relations Commission by members who are not residents of the city, but are residents within Buncombe County.
Well, thank you very much for that report, and that opens up our commission in a really powerful way. Thank you. Unfinished business. So, in our last meeting, we had a conversation about removal of commission members who are not present for 70%.
Must make 75% of the meetings within a 12-month period.
Okay, 75% of the meetings within a 12-month period. And so, since Daniel Young and Crystal Reed are present and have been coming to meeting, Commissioner Young and Commissioner Reed, you are not on this list to be removed from the commission. The only name that is on this list to be removed from the commission is Christopher Boyd. And that's the only name that we're considering for removal from the commission for a no-show of 75% of the meetings.
May I, Madam Chair? So it's an action, and you can make a motion to either remove or retain each member. You do have to make a separate motion for each one. and then the commission can vote in whatever way they see fit. So it's still an item,
Okay.
and you can just handle that how the commission would like to handle it.
All right, so I would like to make a motion to retain Commissioner Young.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
So move, Commissioner Young. Thank you for your service on the commission and your continued service with serving with the Human Relations Commission.
Thank you.
Motion to maintain Commissioner Reed's.
I'll make a motion that we retain Crystal Reed.
I second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, Commissioner Reed, for your service, to the Human Relations Commission, and continued service with the Human Relations Commission. All in favor to remove Christopher Boyd? No, sorry.
May I add something before we go further with that? During that conversation, we asked if anybody had heard from him from city staff or within the HRCA. Is there any update on that information?
I have not heard from Christopher Boyd.
I just want to have a fair, so we all on the same page that we make. Okay, so I second that recommendation.
All right, all in favor?
I did.
Thank you. And Christopher Boyd, we thank Christopher Boyd for his service with the Human Relations Commission and wish him the best of luck in his life. And moving on to our next item up for business, a review of our previous year, our 2022 annual report. Mayor Mannheimer, members of City Council, and the Asheville community, we thank you for your continued dedication to community service and willingness to create an equity-based community for all. This annual report is a review of the work the Human Relations Commission is putting forth into our communities and uplifting the conversation between the Asheville community and the city of Asheville in a cohesive and empowered way. Our mission statement is the purpose of the Human Relations Commission of Asheville is to promote and improve human relations and to achieve equity among all citizens in the city by carrying out the city's human relations program. The HRCA will prioritize racial equity and will work with our city government and partner with communities and outside agencies in an effort to encourage and ensure diversity, fairness, equity, and inclusion throughout the city. In furtherance thereof, the HRCA should endeavor to identify and assist in addressing all forms of individual, institutional, and community discrimination through education, advocacy, and policy recommendations. Our accomplishments for the year 2022, in January, we started off strong with discussions centering the HRCA planning retreat held on December 11th, 2021. Then in February, Eric Jackson and Cameron Henshaw of the Asheville's Office of Data and Performance give a beautiful presentation about what their office brings to the city. HRCA and the city and HRCA and offered open assistance when needed. In March, our meeting was centered primarily around a presentation on proposed changes to the rules of procedure in the HRCA, presented by Brad Branham Legal and our city staff liaison, Kim Rooney. Elena, and offered open, and there was no action taken at that time. We also saw a report by the Human Relations Commission Working Group for addressing housing issues on sanctuary camping recommendations. No action was taken at that time. In April, we took our first action in removing members from the Human Relations Commission for no-shows for 75% to 100% of their terms. The vote on changes to the rules of procedure was moved to the next meeting, and Commissioner Debolo was appointed as alternate on the Reparations Commission. There was a request made to the Committee for Community Engagement to send upcoming community events to the commission and a one-page calendar to share out, which is on that committee's agenda. In May, the meeting was canceled due to a majority of members out due to illness. We resumed in our June meeting with the vote on changes to rules and procedure of HRCA and was moved to the next meeting with further discussion requested regarding membership language. No updates from the committees. The July meeting brought forth a vote on changes to HRCA rules of procedure, with changes moving forward from a 7 yay, 2 nay vote, and the HRCA Working Group for Addressing Housing Issues met to discuss affordable housing discrimination issues based on source of income. In August, in the HRCA August meeting, we enjoyed the presentation, knowledge, and wisdom of the great Jean Troy, Program Manager for the North Carolina Human Relations Commission. After Jean Troy's presentation, we discussed and tabled the recommendation to add source of income to the City of Asheville's non-discrimination ordinance. September was exciting with discussions surrounding the language of the proposed recommendation to City Council to add source of income to the City of Asheville's non-discrimination ordinance. The amendment to remove "stand in solidarity with the residents of Asheville" was approved unanimously, with the unanimous vote of the recommendation itself moving forward to City Council. We also voted on whether to keep virtual meetings or return to in-person with a 6 yay, 1 nay vote. However, there were not enough members present for a supermajority vote to remain virtual. After consulting with our representative from legal, we agreed to visit this at the next meeting in hopes more members could be present to vote on meeting format. Our October meeting was filled with action, starting with moving unfinished business, voting on meeting format, to after community announcements on the agenda, in hopes of additional members arriving to make a supermajority vote possible. With the vote of 6 yay, 1 nay, unfinished business was moved to after community announcements. We then had a healthy discussion on reducing the number of HRCA meetings and moving to a 9-member board. After exploring all angles, we voted unanimously to move to a 9-member board. We then discussed holding 6 meetings a year, held every other month. After another healthy discussion, the motion was approved unanimously. The working group on housing issues shared an update that the City Council is considering a previous recommendation on adding source of income to the City of Asheville non-discrimination ordinance. We ended the meeting with discussion and potential vote on the meeting format, live or in-person HRCA meetings. There was no supermajority present for vote, with HRCA meetings defaulting to in-person meetings. And here we are. In November, we brought up for discussion, with no requested action, a draft recommendation for ordinance based on the North Carolina House Bill 170, also known as the Crown Act. There was no meeting in December. We made a few policy recommendations, source of income for housing, and began our proposal for the Asheville Crown Act. There was some anticipated additional fiscal impact for staff time to implement ordinance recommendations regarding the potential budgetary impact of said recommendations. And that concludes our annual review. It is an honor to be in service. Thank you very much for this opportunity, everyone. And we look forward to a fulfilling and wonderful 2023 with the Human Relations Commission bringing equitable change to city and city policy. Thank you very much. Moving on to new business. Vote to approve our annual report. Action needed, final report due January 21st.
I approve. I second that motion.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Annual report is approved. Which brings us to our new business to discuss and vote on a proposal to recommend to the Asheville City Council to adopt an ordinance based on North Carolina House Bill 170, the Crown Act. It is an unfortunate thing that ordinances like this need to happen in our world. And the need for protection for natural hair in 2023. In our draft of the Asheville Crown Act, this is a proposed recommendation to City Council from the Human Relations Commission. As it is a recommendation to City Council offers City Council the opportunity to review this recommendation to make it into an ordinance, which involves figuring out the actions that are needed to hold discrimination for natural hair accountable in our city. We hope that the City Council will implement this as soon as possible and strongly suggest this is placed on City Council's table to not be tabled and to taken very seriously as soon as possible. The Asheville Crown Act is as follows. We, the aforementioned members of the Human Relations Commission of Asheville, henceforth known as HRCA, support non-discrimination of natural hair by way of the Asheville Crown Act and hereby offer a formal recommendation to the Asheville City Council. We, the aforementioned members of the HRCA, strongly recommend that Asheville City Council swiftly and decisively accept the Asheville Crown Act. Discrimination against persons based on traits historically associated with race, hair texture, or hairstyle prohibited. No person, firm, corporation, unincorporated association, state agency, unit of local government, or any public or private entity shall deny or refuse employment to any person or discharge any person from employment because of traits historically associated with race or on account of the person's hair texture, protective, and culturally significant hairstyles. The following definitions apply in this section. Protective hairstyles includes but is not limited to such hairstyles as bantu knots, braids, locks, and twists. The second definition applying in this section is race. Includes traits historically associated with race, including but not limited to hair texture, hair type, protective, and culturally significant hairstyles. This section shall not be construed to prevent the person from being discharged for cause. Whereas to implement the Asheville Crown Act as a specific ordinance to protect residents and visitors in and of Asheville from potential and/or diminished human rights by way of hair-based discrimination, and so that we may all move forward with good faith efforts supported by the peoples of Asheville, the Buncombe County Commissioners, members of Asheville City Council, to make the city of Asheville an equitable and more inclusive place for all. At this time, we will give the opportunity and space for discussion for any comments or questions regarding the Asheville Crown Act before we motion to approve the recommendation.
I'm sorry, if I may open with, I guess, asking in general, if this bill is passed, who determines, who would you file this grievance with? And then who then determines right or wrong? It's very broad of a subject. So I think I would need a little bit more clarity when it comes to that, as far as who's held responsible for receiving a grievance of such, and how would that entity be held responsible for taking action in a negative way against this bill if it is passed.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Venable?
Yes, piggybacking off of Commissioner Reed's statement. We did have a public comment on this. It was written in by individual, Mr. Curry first. And these were some of the aspects that he did address. Because I do understand that this is not a bill that has been passed by the House or the Senate as far as federally. So within what we're seeing now is other cities doing exactly what we're doing, is making the recommendation. So I think that making the recommendation is not a bad thing, because we don't know what can happen in the future. I think that this would be a good thing to just recommend. It doesn't mean that City Council necessarily will adopt it, but it does mean that we have had the conversations and that other city and county entities do know that this is something that folks would like to have. Now, would I recommend somebody going to a lawsuit with this? I would ask Brad, and I would not, because this is a working real estate. That's one of the biggest issues with North Carolina. And so it is more of an EOP situation, perhaps. However, I do think it is a good move to be able to make that within our constraints as a recommendation to show that we are a city that's moving forward. We're having the ideology of, we do know that people have been discriminated against, and this is not necessarily one of the issues that have been on the non-discrimination act. And I would like to also bring Brad up and ask him what his opinion is about this as far as the recommendation, even though it's not a federal legislation, what the representative impact means to City Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, members of the HRCA. To answer your question, and let me just step back and add a little context because I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page about this. So what you have referred to as the Asheville Crown Act, I think comes almost directly from what was originally called the North Carolina Crown Act. And there were two bills that were proposed in the North Carolina legislature. As you said, Commissioner Venerable, one in the Senate and one in the House, exactly the same. Neither bill became a law. So it was proposed at the state level, but it was not passed. What I believe the proposal is by the HRCA is that the city of Asheville would take this up and then include this as part of its non-discrimination ordinance. In 2021, the city passed its own non-discrimination ordinance along with several other cities, municipalities, and a couple counties around the state that put in place for the first time local limitations against discrimination based upon a pretty wide variety of things. It is worth noting that there's a couple important differences I want to point out. The Crown Act, the North Carolina Crown Act that was proposed, talked about prohibiting discrimination based upon natural hair and hairstyles in employment situations. The Asheville non-discrimination ordinance prevents discrimination in employment and in public accommodations. And that's kind of a fancy way to say anybody that provides a service, businesses, whether it's a restaurant, a hotel, a shop, all these sorts of things would be public accommodations. So in a very important way, the Asheville non-discrimination ordinance is much broader than what was more limited with the proposed Crown Act. I will also mention that as part of the current non-discrimination ordinance for the city of Asheville, it does currently have language that includes a prohibition against discrimination for, among other things, natural hair and hairstyles. So some of this language is already in there today, and I think perhaps what you're considering is, do we need to beef this up? There is some additional language, specifically definitions that your chairperson read tonight from the Crown Act. That may be what you want to propose, because I think what you're deciding here is one of two things. Is this something you want to recommend that the city council recommend to the state, or do you want the city council to adopt it as part of our own local law? Those are two things for you to consider, and if you want to recommend to adopt it to our local non-discrimination ordinance, then be as specific as you can to help our city council members know what additional language it is that you want to add, because as I said, luckily, the city council's already expressed a lot of support for this because the existing ordinance that they approved does include the language natural hair and hairstyles. I'll shut up. Mr. Young.
Will this be put in the schools as well?
Well, so that's a great question. So right now, it includes all employment and public accommodations. So that includes employment with the school. Now, if what you're talking about is the students within the school, that's a good question. I'm going to say, just to be honest with you, maybe not. And I say that because so much of the school system is regulated either at the county level, but primarily at the state level. So that's one of those areas that cities don't have a lot of authority to regulate around. I will tell you, just as an example, one of the reasons that we don't also have a non-discrimination ordinance about housing is because that's one of those things that the state regulates. We had the benefit from hearing your recommendation recently about adding source of income as a protected class. And even though I believe we're not allowed to regulate that locally, we included that as in the adopted city council legislative agenda that I just this week or last week presented to every single one of our local delegation of legislators at the state level. And I've already spoken to two of them about this personally. So we're pushing hard for those things to be moving at the state level. But to your question, I know I'm talking a lot, but I think that's one of those areas that we'd probably have to push the state to do something before we could do anything locally.
But wouldn't this give us leverage if we do pass it? Right here, I'll get the city to pass it, but like our kids are being told they can't graduate 'cause they hair, this and that. So that's, I mean, if it's gonna work, it gotta work for them as well.
Very good point.
This is Commissioner Venable. I like to ask Brad, so in your professional opinion, do you think that we might need to sit on this for a second and keep working on this to where it is this something we can vote on tonight in the aspect that it is to where it can get pushed the way it needs to? Because I think people do want to actually vote for this. I think that, and remember the last minute I said, I want to make sure all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted. Because this is great legislation, but if it doesn't go through the way that it needs to go through, it can kind of miss the target, and that's what we don't want to do. So what do you think we should do as far as this recommendation?
I'm happy to speak to that. I would recommend that, I do think that this is ready for a vote, if you think it's ready for a vote. I'm not prepared to tell you you have to wait, but there's nothing wrong if you want to take another month or two to really hone this down. If you decided to vote on this tonight, my recommendation to you would be to answer two questions for yourself. Number one, is this something you want to add to the city's local rules, or are you wanting this pushed at the state level, okay? And if you want to push at the state level, then the way we do that is through what we call our legislative agenda. Those are things that we ask the state legislators to advocate for in Raleigh, okay? We have less power over that, but it's a bigger deal, obviously, if it goes to state. The second thing I would tell you is if you want to do it locally, if it's just something you want for the Asheville non-discrimination ordinance, as I said, we already have the following language: natural hair and hairstyles, okay? But there's more words in here. There's definitions and some additional language that's important. What I would say is if you want to do it locally, tell us specifically what parts of the North Carolina Crown Act that you would like added so that City Council knows exactly what you want. Yes, ma'am.
I think when we had began to discuss this with the Community Engagement Committee, we looked at the fact that in order to be inclusive, that we needed to make sure that all cultural expressions of hair and hair dress is represented, and that's one of the reasons for the protective and culturally significant hairstyle statement that has been added. And I think that was one of our biggest attempts at finalizing and narrowing down on trying to be as specific and also include other races that would also have hairstyle differences that would also want to be a part of this expression of freedom and free ability to dress and be like you want to be.
Thank you for that. And I would say that's exactly the kind of detail that I believe the City Council would want. And if you feel that you want to think about this and make sure that the language that you want is included in this vote, you can certainly hold off and have a discussion tonight and come back at your next meeting with a specific proposal. It's something your committees and working groups can look at if you'd like. But as I said, if you want to vote on it tonight, as specific as you can be, makes it much easier for City Council to know what it is that you wanted.
I just had a question. What was the other language you used besides Asheville Cities? It covers under employment and then public services?
Public accommodations.
Okay. Is there like detail more of what that includes?
Yeah, and I would refer everybody to, you don't have to do it right now, but the city's non-discrimination ordinance is online, and it is part of the sections, I think it's chapter 8, maybe, it's in the nuisance sections, in section 10.2. That's the city's non-discrimination ordinance, and it is linked on the city's website, so anybody can go look at that. You can just search for non-discrimination ordinance and pull it right up. It defines in there what public accommodations are. Without making you read all of that right now, I think the best thing I can do is to tell you that public accommodations are anything where a service is provided to, a service or goods are provided to the public. So that's really broad, and again, I would say that it includes every restaurant, insurance agency, bank, hotel, a service or good, a shop, anything that you are selling or providing as a service to the public is going to be included in that. So we think it's very broad, and again, the other part of that is employment. So right now, all of these protected classes are given some additional protection for both employment situations and in the public business sphere.
Brad, this is wonderful discussion. Really appreciate leaning into this ordinance, this proposed ordinance and recommendation. So my concern is this within the ordinance, the existing non-discrimination ordinance, is that the term natural hair or hairstyles is so vague that the potential for people who have not been historically marginalized by hair discrimination can create a frivolous lawsuit. While diminishing the importance of protecting people that have had historical discrimination based on natural hair. And so that concerns me with the language in the ordinance. Now, on the other hand, I feel that it's important for this language to be in the ordinance while also implementing the Asheville Crown Act in the city. As you said earlier, we put this in the city, and as Commissioner Young said, we put this in the city, and then it goes to county, and then we strengthen the Asheville Crown Act, because then, as Commissioner Young shared, it gives us leverage to do that. And as a unique ordinance on itself, what is often within systems of that are created to diminish and discriminate against historically marginalized people. I do believe that redundancy is necessary in order to protect against discrimination within systems that have been known to historically marginalize people of color. And so the vagueness that can happen within the interpretation of the existing Asheville non-discrimination ordinance can be made clear by implementing a unique ordinance called the Asheville Crown Act, thereby allowing the Asheville Crown Act to be the ordinance and the go-to ordinance, and have that non-discrimination ordinance as a support of this unique ordinance in itself. Commissioner Venable?
And I totally agree with you. I think I support this measure, I do. But remember when we voted about the housing issue, how we had to go and make sure we cleaned that up so well to where we could recommend that to city council, where they were saying, hey, look, we're willing to adopt it and we want the state to adopt it. I want this to go just that far. So sometimes, even though we don't make a recommendation quick, slow and steady wins the race. And so I do want this policy to be recommended, but I also want it to be recommended into the entirety, as Brad said, because the language is so concise and so to the point to where there's no question about, there's no gray areas. And I think that's why we were able to get that recommendation to City Council last time. So sometimes, because this is not going to go anywhere. No one else is proposing this but us. So we have the affability to be able to make this as shiny as possible. And so that's what I want to see, to where it can work for the community as a whole, and not just here, but it can push other measures throughout the state. Because if we can get this done here with our own, think of what it can do monumentally. So I'm not saying that I don't want this on our agenda. What I'm saying is I want this to be to the most perfect T and I that we can get, to where it's something that city council is saying that we can't do. It's all, and the county will be willing to pick this up in full measures. And some of the things that Dan was saying, some of the things that Brad is saying, might be some of the issues that even the public comment that we might need to look at and put within the language so that it is more absolute. Does that make sense, folks?
Yes, we could set that
Absolutely.
precedent. We could shine it up and make it look good. We
So-
put everything that we want in there and we perceive to be in there. I think that's good. That's good.
Could I just make a suggestion or a recommendation or a plea to the rest of the commissioners that, we talked about this in the November meeting, and then that's when we started to begin to dig down and hone down into it. And that's when we brought together the culturally significant hairstyles, hoping that got us to another level. I'm asking if we can get more ideas from the rest of the commissioners, so that as we're looking at honing down in the community engagement committee, that we have more of a direction as to what we all want to do. So when we bring back the proposal again, that it'll be more accepted and we can go forward with it. Is that something that I can request?
Absolutely,
That's the plan.
Commissioner Atkins.
And I think this conversation, I'm sorry, I think this conversation that we're just having right now fosters that motivation, because I don't think anyone is opposing this, so to speak, but I think what it is that we want to have a broader reach of what this means, not just for us as a local entity, but we want to make sure, because other cities have implemented this as well, made recommendations to this as well, but they also are facing the same type of issue that we are with this. And so when you are able to have a city council that says, hey, look, we're gonna make this a recommendation to the General Assembly too, because this changes our statute, correct? So that's the whole idea, because the measures that we brought forth are actually measures that city council is actually going to the General Assembly and saying, hey, look, this is what our people want. And this is what this board should be very focused on. It's not just local things that can just stay here, but what if it broadens our whole state?
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And that's why I'm saying I'm a visual person, but I'm also a systematic kind of person. And I can, in small groups, we can come up with one thing and then bring it to a larger group, and then we go back to the small group and things. But my desire is that we get some filtering in from, all of our commissioners, so that as we in the community engagement committee does do that fine tuning and combing, that we are able to bring back a proposal that we as a commission can bring together wholeheartedly. I gotta say it back. I'm through.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well said.
But I like it. I like the discussion. Thank you.
Well said, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
And we have to take into, just one thing, I'm sorry.
Right.
We also have to look at, we're not meeting next month, so we actually have 2 months to work this out. We got 2 months to kind of clean it up, work it out, and do exactly what we did back in November. So,
60-day deadline for this.
So then we can set that as a motion to push this to our April March. It would be March meeting. It would be our March meeting. So we would push this to our March meeting, have it nice and shiny, like he said, like Commissioner Venable said, have it nice and shiny, and have all of our voices represented in this recommendation. And help to establish this as the leading voice in protection of natural hair in the state of North Carolina. I am all for that, and I appreciate you saying that, and the willingness to make this recommendation something that's really strong, bulletproof, and no questions. Let's just do it. So, thank you.
Okay, I would like,
Ella, Commissioner Catherine?
Yeah, I just had a question with what Brad mentioned. So we can make a recommendation or add to make a recommendation for the city council and for state legislators. So that's.
I'm glad you said that. I didn't mean to suggest you couldn't do both. And I honestly didn't think about it, but absolutely you could. Understand that anything we pass locally only deals with Asheville. Anything the state passes is statewide, generally speaking. So we could do something here as well as the state. So you have the ability to push a recommendation to city council that would propose this to be adopted locally and for us to advocate for that at the state level.
One more question, Brad. Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. One more question, Brad. Can you please share with us, for the newer members on the commission, what the process of making a recommendation is and what it entails? So within this process of making the recommendation, we are just bringing forth the recommendation, and it's, when we bring forward a recommendation, City Council reviews the recommendation and then establishes the guidelines surrounding the recommendations, including what happens if somebody, when it's implemented, what happens if somebody is in a violation of that ordinance.
That's exactly right, Madam Chairman, and I will say the process looks a little like this. When this commission or any other body that's advisory to the city council makes a recommendation and you vote on it through both staff channels as well as your council liaison, those things move up to the city council as well as the city manager's office for consideration to put on one of their agendas. Generally speaking, the city manager and the mayor make determinations based upon that kind of a recommendation about what agendas are going to be put forth. It usually starts at a council committee. We have just recently and proudly started the brand-new city council committee on equity and engagement. So that, I think, would be the natural committee this would likely go to. That committee, if it recommends it, would then send the item to the full city council. But during that process, city staff, and something like this heavily with my office, would work to refine it, to make it legally acceptable in terms of the process, as you're mentioning. So we don't ask you to do everything, and we would say we want as much input as you are able and willing to give, and we are there as your resource to help you fill in the rest of it. And if you have questions, we could always come back to you with our recommendation, and you give us your feedback on that, and we can continue to tweak it till you feel comfortable with it.
Thank you very much, Brad. All right. Motion to push the Asheville Crown Act to our March meeting for a vote.
a second.
We got a lot of seconds. So, all in favor? Aye. So move, motion approved to push our Asheville Crown Act, the HRCA recommendation to City Council, Asheville Crown Act to the March meeting. Elena?
For the minutes, Madam Chair, would you also call for any nays?
Oh, pardon me, are there any nays for the minutes for our November meeting? There are not.
No, for these, I'm sorry, for these minutes. For, I'm
recommendation.
Are there any objecting this particular action?
Action.
Oh, any objections? Moving on. Thank you very much, everyone, for your support in the Asheville Crown Act, and looking forward to seeing that established by City Council. Next item up for business is staff presentation on how the City of Asheville receives complaints. Elena, our City Staff Liaison, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, looking at the time, I want to make sure that this commission has enough time to ask the great questions that y'all ask. And so for the sake of time, I wanted to see if you would like to table this for the March meeting as well.
What say you,
I would
Commissioner?
recommendation as a runner, to table this until March
Okay,
and revisit this.
I second that motion.
okay, second. All in favor? Yes. All in favor? Commissioner Venable?
Oh, no. I was gonna say, I was waiting. Yeah.
Moving on to our next item up for business, committee updates, intergovernment relations. Nothing to report?
I just have one quick question. Want to ask Brad or anybody in the city, is CPAC still meeting at this time? And what is the status of CPAC as a board? And where are their memberships? How can we find what is going on with CPAC? Because we made a vote a couple of years ago to solve CPAC. And so it's been very hard for me because I'm working, and it's part of what some of our committee is supposed to be doing is working with them. And so it's been kind of difficult to figure out what's going on with that board and if it's in limbo, so.
They have not been meeting as of late. They have not been officially dissolved, but they simply have not had agenda issues to take up, so we have not been scheduling any meetings for that body. As you all probably know, especially those who've been on the board for a while, there was a little bit of question about what this group handled and what that group handled, and I think HRCA has ended up taking up many of the issues that CPAC was originally dealing with, so this has consumed a lot of the oxygen out of that process.
Is there going to be a point in time into which either city council decides whether or not, because are they technically outside of their appointment to, per se, you understand what I'm saying? Are they outside of their jurisdiction to even operate? Would they have to even go into the whole new board at this point?
It's possible. I don't know the last time someone was appointed CPAC. I do think it's been a while. So at this point, I'm not aware of any plans to initiate CPAC meeting again, but there's nothing stopping them. I just don't think they've had any agenda issues to cover.
So if we were trying to work and we needed some of the information that some of their board members perhaps held, how would we be able to do that?
I would advise through, again, one of your staff liaisons, they can touch base with our clerk's office, who is the entity responsible for managing and overseeing and assisting all of the commissions, so they can help you determine who it is that you would talk to if there's someone available.
Thank you so much, because I thought I was just missing something there.
You're right on.
Thank you very much. And I think that may have been your committee update on examining systems. Heard. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Venable. Community Engagement Committee? Commissioner Atkins?
I would like to say it was great to be at the Martin Luther King prayer breakfast as a group. We did get a table, thanks to Tanya. And one of the things that I want to highlight, and we do need to bring back that, is the statement that we will get a roster of significant events around Asheville that the Human Relations Commission can be present at, because I think a strong presence from us shows that we are invested in the communities and want to be able to hear what community is saying. So that's not taking anything over from you, Harvey, but I think that goes back to you wanting us to be more engaged and visible.
I always advocate for that. Us being as one, that we look to see what public engagements are. Some of them are seasonally and some of them are, dated. But we need to make those a commitment to be there. And we were one, we were not separate. But as of now, there's only a few, here and there, but let's get together and be strong as one.
And I think to kind of push that a little forward, what we can do is, because we said significant, because we can't be everywhere and at every engagement, but if we can come together and put together a list of significant ones and bring back to the full body of commissioners in March, then maybe we can get further direction as to how to hone it down. Is that a good report out for you all?
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins.
Well said.
Moving on to addressing housing issues. Commissioner Reed?
Yes, I would like to first of all say that this has been a struggle because we have lost some of the commissioners due to their terms expiring that were participating in this subcommittee. However, just a notation for tonight's meeting that there is a meeting that was requested primarily from myself to possibly meet on these housing issues so that I can get more involvement from other commissioners on this issue in a subcommittee way. This meeting could be scheduled to accommodate everyone else's schedule. The date that I have as of right now, a meeting will be scheduled for Saturday, January 21st, 2023. Just so that we can discuss the issues at hand and what has been discussed in past so that we can move forward in addressing these issues properly.
What date was that?
That is scheduled at 11 a.m. Saturday, the 21st. However, again, this can be accommodated to help everyone around their schedule.
Can you do this, can this meeting be virtual, on Zoom or anything?
I think that it's very rational and reasonable to make this by Zoom or a conference call, anything that will accommodate one's schedule, because I am very aware that you are involved in the other subcommittees. But I'm only requesting a little more backup. We need a little more backup when it comes to these issues as we move forward.
You have to be careful not to be quorum though, because if we be quorum, it becomes public records, and we have to give that out.
Correct.
So this is a conversation that y'all have to be able to have within your own entity. That's one thing, so you can discuss some things outside the public purview. But if we meet a certain number of people, that means everybody can't be on the line, that's gonna be a problem.
But
Correct.
I don't think we're gonna be, it'll be like a meeting amongst ourselves. It's us going to these different developments, supporting the community, finding out. And we
As
just
long as
there.
we're together in one group, and
Yeah,
we're
but
walking through,
we're
we're still in quorum.
but we're just there as support for the
We're
community.
still on the board, we're still in quorum, and they can request a public records access.
The sunshine.
Yep.
Well, I
So-
mean, but
So,
Brad, is that correct or no? Just
What
to
are you
make sure.
saying? I didn't hear.
Yeah, it's really important, and I really appreciate you bringing it up. Just as we have had to notice and provide public access to your meeting tonight, anywhere you get together, even if it's electronic. If you call each other all on the phone, technically that is required under state law to be noticed and given access to the public to attend. So you're able to meet, I believe there are 11 seats right now, is that correct? So you are able to meet for up to 5 of you at a time. But if you go to that 6th person together, if you're all getting together socially, that's fine. But if you're doing something that would be involved in the business of the HRCA, even if it's just receiving information, be very careful about that, because we don't want you to be able to break those state laws. It's really important to us. And if you decide you want to go do something and all be at an event, let us know in advance and we can actually do the notice for that so that everybody can attend. We just have to go through those steps to make it legal.
I apologize. So for clarity, I was only asking this be brought out to the attention of the other commissioners. As of right now, there are 2 commissioners that reside on this subcommittee, and that is myself and Mr. Daniel Young. And Kim Roney, of course, is supportive as a liaison through the city for all of our subcommittees. So I just wanted to make it clear that I'm not asking for a quorum. I'm just asking for maybe support of someone who is interested in this topic as we move forward.
So members that who are interested, we can kind of contact you for more information outside of here for that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In the meantime, are there any commissioners that are interested in serving on the addressing housing issues with Crystal, Commissioner Reed and Commissioner Young?
I will step up and sign on.
Thank you, Rowena. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Thank you, Commissioner Oliver.
Thank you.
And so now you have,
Thank you.
So you got 5 now. You got 4 or 5?
4.
We have 4.
And that's for addressing housing issues. That'll be okay.
Great. Thank you.
examining systems. And then, is there anything to report for examining systems?
Not at present.
We kind of covered that with. It's 2-1 on that one.
All right, moving on to improving HRCA, which is an internal function only. Is there anything to report with improving
Again,
HRCA?
the CPAC question was because it's hard to improve. So that clarity kind of gave a little way to move in a different direction. Now they kind of know that some things are not necessarily depend on other things or other information right now. We can kind of, I guess, put our own perspective forward on that and start working on that form of it since we can see the other side of it now.
I got a question about improving the HRCA with the youth. Can we can some of the youth be added to this board? Or what? You said we at 9, are we gonna stay at 11? Are we gonna invite the youth to be on this board?
So you're going to stay at 11 until the terms of certain members end, and at that point, you will go to 9. It's totally up to the city council. I don't know that we have any age requirements for membership. I would have to defer to the clerk's office on that. They manage that process, but it's always up to the city council to make the determination about who gets appointed.
Okay.
Within the establishing ordinance of the HRCA, it was designated that there would be youth representation here. Of course, we want to hear from our young people, but this is the one commission that we specifically were pursuing those voices, and we don't necessarily have the applicants to appoint. So outreach support would definitely be welcome as a member of the Boards and Commissions Committee. The application is on the city's website on the clerk's page.
Will we be able to get a youth stipends if they do take advantage of this opportunity? Or are we just gonna use them?
The city that I'm aware of in North Carolina that provides stipends for equity seats is Durham. They do have a program. Asheville does not have a program for that. I would certainly support, as your liaison, looking into what a recommendation for that might look like.
So, if Durham and other local, cities has this, why Asheville is not moving forward, where they can at least compensate some of us here? Okay, so why the city is not adapting that as well? I mean, we are here volunteer, but I mean, you know, like,
So the Durham council members that I've talked to, Javier Caballero and Jillian Johnson, did that through their Office of Engagement. So because we have a subcommittee of engagement for the HRCA, that could be a potential table to bring up that topic for a recommendation.
I wanna put it on the board. I think it's time to do business right. I mean, we just can't ask people to come here just to do it. I mean, yeah, we love our community, but we all got responsibility. We got gas to get here. I mean, Brandon, he's walking here, so I'm taking him home. Stuff is happening. So we just can't be doing stuff just out of the kindness of our heart. I mean, I love Asheville, but at the same time, I got bills and everything else too. My car don't get here just on will and faith. It need gas, so, I mean, got responsibilities. And I think it's time for Asheville to do right by us, because we are out here in the community, seeing what the community does need, and then we're taking it back to the city council or to the mayor when they can be doing the same work that we're doing. You got to stay in touch with our community. But if they're going to use us, but come on, compensate us a little bit. We're not stuck in the Flintstones age. Come on, we got to move forward. They've been doing this at Durham. The city told us they couldn't do it. Now we find out that it has already been done. Come on, don't lie to us. Be real with us. That's it.
So am I hearing, that youth representation and possibly compensation for members of the commission is something that's gonna come back to community engagement? Was that what I heard?
I asked the question, were we gonna be bringing the youth to this board, and were we gonna be compensating these youth to be coming to this board?
Just the youth or?
All of us as one, not just the youth, us as well. I believe this is the second time we done went over this topic about being compensated. We went over it last year when we was on virtual. And that's when we found out that the city said we couldn't get paid, but I believe that was a lot of stuff that wasn't, no information. But maybe we can see why we can't. I mean, if they paying the reparation board, why we can't get the same kind of treatment? We all are doing the work. No board is better than the other board. We're not better than the reparation board. We all out here doing the same work that's needed for our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Atkins? Moving on to our next item up for business, our community announcements. Are there any events, engagements of interest to HRCA that we would like the public to know about or share with the public?
Well, I'm still happy about this past Saturday when we went to the Martin Luther King breakfast. I was so elated. I've been wanting to go for years, just like Commissioner Rodriguez. And we finally got a table to go and sent out an email for all the commissioners to come. We had 4 people that showed up, but it was 4 people from HRCA. And I'm so glad. And then Nowena, she was also there. She was at a different table. And appreciate that. She don't like them. But we'll let that go for right now. But I heard from other people, who reads emails? Anyway, but it was a good thing, and I just loved it. But we need to come together, as I said, and go to more functions together. We did a couple last year. One was on, what street? Burton Street. flowers. Commissioner Debelo, Commissioner Rodriguez and I were there. But it helps bring us together. And we learn from one another that way, by just being out and experiencing the public as it is per se. But anybody else have any engagements that they know of coming about? If not, we'll bring some to the table when we come back in March. That's on part of our agenda, to bring back some engagements and events that we can all attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harold. At this time, we give space for our live public comment. No members of the public are present at this time. And we move to adjourn. If there is no other business, thank you very much, commissioners, for showing up continually and being in service to our wonderful city here in these beautiful mountains. Have a wonderful rest of your few months, and we'll see you in March. Thank you, Asheville. Keep it
Thank
real.
you.
Be kind to each other.